As modern entertainment began to monopolize our attention, board games had fallen down the chute of priority and became relegated to the dungeons of entertainment as a cabin, cottage, or rainy day thing to do. But in this last decade, board games have become no trivial pursuit and provide a candy land of fun, even inspiring restaurants where you can order food to eat while you play. Today, we explore the cards of our humanity and how people have once again become hungry for hippos. Today on Talkily. Hello everyone, this is AWC. Today I'm here with Mel.
Hi.
Cody.
Hey.
And Laura.
Hi.
And today we're talking about the resurgence of board games and how they seem to be on the upswing, at least for the last couple years. So for the longest time, just like as you heard in the intro, from my experience, board games have always been present, but I never really thought of them as a super fun thing to do. As a kid, I grew up with video games pretty much exclusively. And now I'm finding more and more that board games aren't just becoming a thing to do on a rainy day, but actually becoming a social thing to do, go out, play. And some of them they range from, super complicated to very simplistic, but there's a lot of variety out there now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I grew up with video games, but, old Nintendo and stuff. But we also played quite a few board games, but they tended to be all the same ones. You would have the same ones as your friends. We had Monopoly, the Game of Life, Twister, Clue, all those classic board games. There were a few others that had a little bit more going on. But I feel like, I guess maybe... Again, I haven't researched the history of board games. Maybe in Europe, I think Germany, there was kind of where the board game resurgence kind of started. Don't quote me on that, but that's as far as I'm aware. And then they kind of migrated to North America, and we suddenly had all these, early 2000s-ish, or I don't know if it was in the 90s, or I feel like early 2000s. We suddenly had all these, new and interesting types of board games. People discovered things like Settlers of Catan was kind of a gateway board game, and then all of a sudden it just kind of exploded all at once.
Yeah, I believe Settlers of Catan was one of the first ones. Cards Against Humanity for me was, and it's not a board game; it is a card game technically, but I feel it falls into kind of a similar category in terms of like it's a social game, right? That includes cards and stuff. And
card games, I think, can kind of fall under the banner.
I feel like most people, when they're talking about board games, that includes things like a lot of card games these days. There's not necessarily a big differential.
Yeah, because I think
That's
before...
a word.
Because before, like a standard board game would be like, say, Monopoly.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And now there are, board games and card games that incorporate kind of... there was a time when you would see, okay, here's a card game and here's a board game, and now there's a lot of cross between the two of them, I feel like. Where you have a lot of card games that have, kind of like board game aspects and vice versa. Where they're not necessarily exclusive to one another. Like I don't see Cards Against Humanity. It's a card game, right? And it's not technically a board game, but it's a type of game where you get together with a bunch of friends and you play, because there's a social aspect to it. And for me, I love the fact that it's so it's so cheeky. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
it's definitely not for anybody under the age of 18.
Yeah, but there are 12 and 13-year-olds that are playing it, right? And sometimes with their parents. So,
yeah.
The box expansion is definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
I can't even justify why. It just makes me laugh more than anything should.
I think Cards Against Humanity is also a great way of getting to know the deep-seated dark thoughts of your friends.
We've certainly enjoyed it in this group, yes.
Yes. It allows us to be terrible, terrible humans but
with other terrible humans.
Yes.
And so you all can be terrible together.
In a socially acceptable context.
Yes. Yes. And then there are some board games too that they get super complicated. They can be fun, but they require an extensive amount of time, I feel like, in order to really enjoy it. Just learning the rules and the ins and outs of how to actually play.
I would say that I'm just finally starting to get into the haunting on.
Oh,
Betrayal?
one of my favorite
Betrayal.
board
Sorry,
games.
yeah.
I actually think that one's one of the it's one of the simpler rule sets to jump into.
right.
Actually,
You don't need to necessarily. So, Betrayal, House on Haunted Hill is one of my favorite board games that was introduced to me by a friend of mine, also named Laura, but a different Laura. I feel like it's kind of in between. It is. I can see why you think like it does get a little complicated, but I do feel like you don't need to know the rules ahead of time in order to start playing it. Like you just basically need to read what's on the cards
Right.
and in the books. And sometimes things come up that get more complicated, but it's kind of, you don't know what it's going to be. And, you kind of learn it as you go. And you don't necessarily need to have a lot of instruction ahead of time, I don't think. Is that?
no, I would agree. It's very like beginner friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can be someone's first time playing that game, and they actually still have a very good chance of winning, even if they're playing with other like more like veteran players.
Right. It might just be good to have somebody who's more experienced and like knows how to use the rule books and stuff, the handbooks.
Just to run them through it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's increased my enjoyment is that after playing it a couple times, the groups I've been playing with have become veterans, and so it's a much smoother game experience than the first time we played, where
there was alcohol involved. I was not good at explaining the rules. I apologize.
It's all right. We persevered.
Yeah. Rule number 1: Melanie always wins.
Yeah. No. Rule number 1. Before you start playing a new game, with again, fairly complicated rules, make sure you're relatively sober for the first time.
I mean, but beyond that, also, I mean, you'd only played it, I think, once before as well.
Maybe.
So
I just really liked it and was like, look, guys, you get to explore a haunted house with other people and, fight monsters maybe, or,
And I think that's a good sort of jumping off point or a tangent there is who you play with matters.
Oh, absolutely. Your group of game friends. Yeah, definitely matters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was the one that we played at Across the Board when JC was leaving?
Across the Board is a board game cafe
in Winnipeg. Yes.
Yeah, and JC is one of their other co-hosts.
Mm-hmm.
Be seen in a future episode or past episode, depending on where you see this one.
Yeah, do your thing, future Alvin.
Yeah.
Which game was that?
That I think you and Haley had left at that point. It was the one where you were having to contain contagions.
Pandemic.
Pandemic. That's another fun one.
Which is a great cooperative board game, which is a different style of board game where you
I really
all players actually work together. Pandemic's another quite well-known board game, I think, like Settlers, and it's great. You're trying to work together to contain the pandemic and stop the zombie apocalypse or whatever's happening in the world with your friends. And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do you guys think that board games have started coming back? Because I would say that, at least around the 2000s, they've always been around, but I feel like, now in today's, like as of today, it's a big industry. It's $1 billion industry now.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't at that state, 20 years ago.
No.
And for me, there have always been board games that I saw others play that I knew that, and I've had other friends who, they play like these really expansive board games with like little pieces and involves like, and the campaigns they would play aren't done in a single day.
Are you talking more about like D&D style? Like,
No, but there are some more like,
I think is another one.
Yeah,
maybe?
there are some tabletop like war games that you set them up, and just because of how long each round takes, you're playing those for a few days, and it's just one game, and it's just you and one friend, like almost dueling each other, that they can last forever. I do think design principles changed and adapted, and that's been a huge avenue for like why it's resurged. Because I do find a lot of the games that were around when I was a kid were either really like gimmicky, like Mousetrap, for example, was like it the whole like
trying to get it to work properly.
Yeah, and I enjoyed setting it up and stuff, but it was just a big gimmick, so I got bored very quickly. Or it was a game that like I've never liked Monopoly, that kind of a thing. But you get a lot more newer games now where it's like I just like even looking at the pieces, and they're there is such a history now to build off of design-wise that like if you start playing a lot of games, you can kind of intuit how like more how different rule sets will work, and it makes it easier to pick up and easier to explain and that kind of thing. Like I just think it's been a bit of a growth in that regard.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more variety as well in terms of what we can play. Because I feel like that you're total. I'm 100% with you on that. I feel like growing up, there were games out there, but nowhere near the amount that we have today.
No,
where there's so many options that there's bound to be a game out there that you will enjoy. For me, I love Exploding Kittens. By
that one is actually fun. Yeah.
Who is a awesome artist?
Yeah. Are we allowed to plug other random things?
I have no idea, but
okay.
I'm doing it.
No
affiliation. I'm just a fan. So
yeah. So not a sponsor, but one of the things that got me back into board games was about 6 years ago, I think. I came across a website called Shut Up and Sit Down, and it's a board game review site.
Oh.
It's literally, it's like, okay, shut up and sit down. I have to tell you about this game is kind of what they're about. And they're just like really engaging, and it's really easy to just listen to them, like get excited about whatever game they're talking about.
Right.
And I feel like there's like maybe the internet helped with that. It actually probably did.
I was just going to say,
now that I say that,
maybe like YouTube and blogs and things have kind of helped get the word out. Like, hey guys, there are different games than what you played as a child.
Yeah. So like, for all I know, there was actually and always has been like hundreds of board games available, but we only ever knew about like 3 kind of a thing.
That's a really good point, because even like there are a lot of board games and games that have launched because of crowdsourcing.
Yes,
right? Crowdfunding and whatnot, GoFundMes, etc., that have been able to establish a platform because they now have this new medium, a la the internet, in order to actually promote themselves. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good point. Like it's a good chance that a lot of there are a lot of games. It's a possibility there were just more. There were games before. It was just harder to hear about them.
I do know there was a lot. Like there was like a big gaming boom in the 80s. And then a lot of IPs basically didn't make it out of that. Like there was just the big ones that really survived. There was one, I'm blanking on the name, but it's one player plays like this giant super sci-fi tank. And then I think it's 4 other players play small ones, and it's 4-on-1 that recently got kickstarted, I think a couple of years ago, to be revamped and redesigned and resold. But I think, like there was a lot that just didn't survive for one reason or another. And now they're getting a comeback as well.
And I think also there are some social reasons for why we're adopting board games.
Nerds are cool now.
Yes,
absolutely.
Well, there used to be a thing where like, Dungeons and Dragons used to be like, oh, that's a nerd thing.
Yep.
It's not anymore. And there are a lot of things I think that used to be, and they would fall into the stereotype of, if you do this, you belong to this crowd. If you do this, you belong into this crowd. And I for me, one of the things I'm loving, now is that we're seeing a lot more crossover where, you can enjoy sports and you can enjoy video games and you can enjoy board games and you can do all of that, right?
Like board games aren't just for playing with your grandma and your mom on a, quiet Friday night or something, but
exactly.
Or for playing with your friends out. And again, the rise of these board game cafes with the, with the resurgence of board games means that you can go out and, have something to eat, have a burger, have a drink with your friends while you're playing these, which makes it feel more.
And the staff are knowledgeable. Like they're there.
Right, absolutely.
They know their games too, right? So.
Yeah. And again, access to knowledge, going back to the internet thing, having a wealth of information at your fingertips makes learning these new board games really accessible.
And do we, just again, going back to kind of the how technology might have influenced this resurgence, I'm just thinking about how maybe we're looking for a way to have more face-to-face interaction with our friends, because so often when you go out now, maybe your friends are just looking at your phone and, you're texting each other, and maybe you do want to get together and, have lunch or something, but you guys are just so busy, so now if you can get together and do this thing, and you're doing an activity while you're with your friends, so I guess it feels productive, but, it's something different. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm an avid video gamer.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys have. I don't know if anyone's noticed.
No, we didn't notice at all.
Couldn't have
This
told you.
lovely bookshelf behind Laura here. Yeah.
But there used to be a time when you used to be able to like go to a friend's house, and you can still do this with certain platforms, certain games. But more and more local multiplayer is no longer available on a lot of games, and it's because everything's moving online. Right.
Yeah. I do think it's really interesting how any game that does have local multiplayer, like that's like a hyped
thing.
feature now. And it's like, that should tell the industry something, but as far as the AAA industry goes, it doesn't really seem to.
Yeah. And I think, board games in general, regardless of whether or not it's a card game, a traditional board game, an intense one, a light one, even something simple, I think the fact that you get together with somebody and that you're in the same room with them, doing something that's not on a screen, is part of the draw, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And like you said, you get to know your friends and their personalities and maybe how good a winner or a loser they are. But
I feel like that was a jab at the clued up.
It actually wasn't. It was not intended to be a jab at anybody.
That's okay.
I was just thinking about kind of what you said earlier about Cards Against Humanity, Alvin, just how you get to know your friends.
So you're not still bitter about how Laura tried to murder us, but we got away?
No, I've forgiven her.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, you're not. I wouldn't be. Missing pieces to games, though. Oh, when you're missing a piece, you have to replace it with like a die or like an ice cube that just melts away.
I mean, I've never tried an ice cube, but
yeah, I switched to the ice cube after the tack. Kept poking me. So maybe just not as bright as I thought I was.
Not the sharpest knife in the sky.
not the sharpest tack.
I was also going to say, and maybe this is sort of my antisocial tendencies coming out. The thing I really like about board games is it gives me a very specific format in which to engage with my friends. I'm not having to think about how to try and entertain or be entertaining because the game does that for me.
Yes.
And I think it's a nice way to introduce new friends to the group too, or if people want to bring somebody. It's like, well, you don't have to know each other really well. You don't have to like awkwardly try to have a conversation like, so what do you do for work? You can be like, let's
instead let's play
the pandemic.
Cards Against Humanity, and you can just put
and then we'll really get to know
filthiest cards
really
down possible.
Fast. Yeah. We'll get to know if you fit in this group or not. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that happened at a wedding was playing Cards Against Humanity at the end of the night. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a good, interesting.
It was an interesting wedding. Yes.
Yeah.
But the Cards Against Humanity was a really nice way of integrating with the families of the couple who we didn't know particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a great icebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think some of them too, like some of them are just fun. Well, they should be fun. But
ideally.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's nice to get to know people when you're all having fun, as opposed to like an awkward kind of format social interaction. When and everyone's having fun, everyone has a great first impression of everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, you made a good point because when everyone's having fun, there's less pressure on everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's important. But for me too, like one of the things I love about certain games, and bringing up Cards Against Humanity too, is like some of them are they're just so cheeky, and they really are.
Yeah.
I really love but I mean even them as a company, like Boxing Day or Black Friday, like they have an anti-Black Friday sale where they charge you double if you want to buy the games, right? And people buy it because like it's
that's funny.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
Because you get a story out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and I think when companies embody kind of part of what they do, or it's not just a product that they push out, and for me, what's one of the things I'm worried about is at what point will we start getting an overabundance of games, and when will it become, more about pushing out product to make more money? And to be fair, these companies have to make money in order to continue with their games, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference between a company doing a Kickstarter or a company creating something and then sharing it with everybody because they not only want to make a few bucks, but because they genuinely want to make people happy, or they want to provide some form of entertainment for somebody. But another thing when it's on the machine churning stuff out, because we're seeing that right now with video games.
Right. Maybe not worried about the quality of what you're putting out.
It's less about how can we make money by making people happy and providing them with an experience, and more about how can we gouge people. That's what I hope it doesn't go that way with board games. Maybe it is now, maybe it will never happen, but I don't know.
I do think like that might already be happening to a degree, but I don't think it's having the same impact it did with video games. Partly because just from a a design standpoint, making a board game is more approachable than making a video game.
Right.
So I do think though, we were just at game night earlier today, for example, and there's like 8 third-party add-ons for Cards Against Humanity. Like, was it Crabs Adjust Humidity and all those stuff? That like, there's like an entire aisle that's just these knockoff add-ons, and I never actually hear about them.
Also, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What I was going to say, I think the reason you play a video game and the reason you play a board game are fundamentally different.
Yeah, they can be.
Depends on the style of video game, maybe, but
there are a lot of board games where you can jump in and literally it can be 4 of us, a bunch of random people, grandma. You know what I mean? There are a lot of board games that you can do that for. And again, to be fair, there are board games you can't do that with, but then there are so many other options if you want to do that, right? Video games, not quite. Even with the advances of mobile games introducing people who normally wouldn't play video games, and the advancement of the Nintendo Wii and how that big push, introduced, a lot of people who normally wouldn't play video games, got them playing. With board games, there's something about board games and card games and whatnot that is more universal, and more accessible.
I just remember the second half of a point I was going to make. So real quick, going back to this getting too corporate. It's already kind of happening, but I think because game design is so approachable for so many people, there is a bare minimum quality level that has already been set. So even when we get the garbage derivative versions, the ones that really take off are still going to have to meet that kind of a thing.
And board games are probably easier for people to kind of, amateur designers and things to get into than video games. You don't need tech stuff. You just need to, cut out pieces of cardboard and have good ideas for cards.
Quicker to play test. There's a company online too that if you send them PDF files of all of your stuff, and I think it's like $60, they'll print out a high quality official version of whatever your game you want and mail it to you.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, and I mean, obviously this very much depends on the video game, and maybe this is more of an indication of what kind of video games I play. But there's sort of an end point. So once I'm done a game, it's unlikely that I would immediately want to play it again the following week.
Right.
Whereas with board games, it's more about the experience and having different experiences every time.
Yeah, one of the things I love about House on Haunted Hill is that it gets to the point where you get to something called the haunt, which is kind of like turning point of the game.
I just need to interject. Anytime I play that game, everyone seems to be dreading it, and I'm like, someone screw up this roll. Let's get to the haunt.
Like a traitor here. Come on.
This is when it gets fun.
Well, that's the point where you've finished building out your arena, and now you get to the part of the game where either you get chased, or you're doing chasing, or there's a mole, or there's a whole bunch of different things that can happen. And for me, that's one of the things I love about that game.
And I think because the basic game has something like 50 different haunts, depending on what room you're in and who starts it, And then also the fact that the house by design is these cards you lay out. So the house is a different design every time. There's a lot of replay value in that game.
Yeah.
So it is a good example of how board games, I mean, not that video games can't have replay value. A lot of them do, but you might not want to start it directly after. And some of them you might not feel the need to play again. Whereas, board games, you might finish a game and go, let's play that again, if you have time with your friends or whatever.
I do dislike, and this is more just because I'm cheap. A lot of them now are like expensive. Like there's a lot of board games that I've always wanted to try, and it's like $90 to pick them up.
Right.
Now, granted, you are getting effectively, like, as long as you have friends to game with, like unlimited
as long as you have friends.
play value. Yeah, as long as you have friends.
If you need friends, message us. We will happily be your friends.
I mean, if you want to put your own personal,
you're going to put yourself out there.
Are decent human beings.
Laura is the kind of person who would just go up to somebody and talk to them.
Not realize that person might be a serial murderer.
Well, that's what the three of us are here for, I guess.
They protect me.
We'll protect you.
Yes.
But yeah, just like the rise in popularity, I feel like the cost has definitely soared. Which fair.
To a point, fair.
That's when I think that places like different board game cafes are really valuable, because you can try out a game a few times even, and then if you really like it, you can decide it's worth the money. But if you don't, you can still go to across the board.
Yeah.
Say that's just our favorite board game cafe in the city.
Yeah.
But
it might be the only one right now too.
Ditto.
Oh, what happened to After Dark? Did it?
The owners just wanted to retire and go into different things. Yeah.
And I thought there was another one somewhere, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Our city doesn't have a ton. I know other cities do. But yeah, so I mean, you can go back there and play the same game as long as it's available at the time you were there.
Yeah.
Somebody else isn't using it. You can go back and play it a whole bunch and not spend that money if you so choose.
Yeah, it's really great, playing games that we played at recess in the 90s and not having to go out and buy them for our own basements.
Yes. Unless we still have them from the 90s, but...
Yes. I didn't have a substantial collection of board games. Or if we did, they were sort of inherited from cousins, and there was missing pieces. So
we had quite a few, but I think they've been given away to other people who had younger children. Yeah,
I played a lot of Chinese checkers growing up. Actually, even against myself sometimes, because I really like that game. I like making patterns.
Does our favorite game say something about a personality? Possibly. I like different levels of complication in the games, but with the ones that are so complicated that you need to spend an hour reading the rule book before you can actually play the game, at that point, like if you're going to spend longer reading the rule book or as long as it takes to play the game itself, that seems a little too much to me.
I have found a few of those are often the instruction booklet is designed badly.
Right, yeah.
Like there's a few, like Mage Knight is a game, like I've played it a couple of times. I love it, like everything about the design. The rule book is like a short novel. But if you have someone that knows the game, they can actually run you through it in about 10 minutes.
Right. Okay. It's a lot easier to kind of show how to play it after you know how to play it, rather than read the actual rule book. Yeah, and this is the thing, maybe these instructions just aren't very well written by people who know how to deliver instructions properly.
I was going to say, how often are you finding where there's like a QR code or there's some sort of link to like a demo online that sort of quickly shows you how to set stuff up?
I don't think I've come across that. That's officially with the packaging anyway. Not too often.
I mean, we get into obsolescence real fast.
And there's that issue,
But
they can always update the game, right? I mean, they have refreshes and whatnot. But yeah, it's an interesting point, because now you're seeing some games that are using AR, augmented reality, in the design, and I think that's really cool. Where you can kind of see things through your phone or smart device or whatever that isn't actually there.
Yeah,
right.
My only issue with that and board games is the same issue that I kind of have with a lot of video games. Is like, if you don't have the console, or if the console breaks down and they never ported the game over, like that's lost forever.
Yeah, right.
So now you have it's like, the app that goes with this game isn't available. Guess I'm never playing this board game again.
Yeah, they forget to update it. It was invented, they created it 3 years ago. And, they just never updated it with the new OSs. So now you have it and it's like, oh, well, this isn't working. I've had that happen with me with like tools and stuff like that. Just like random things that, they create an app and it's a great idea, except it's only a good idea if you keep updating it.
Right.
Yeah. Like I like the idea of board games that they just don't have that problem. Yeah. Like as long as you have the pieces and the rules, you have the game.
Right. And you have it for as long as you have all the pieces and everything. Yeah. And if you need help setting up, I haven't found, just to go back to that, I haven't found any like games that have codes directly in the books or anything, but you can usually do a YouTube search and find an instructional video of how to play this game.
I don't think you ever find anything interesting on YouTube. No, but YouTube's a go-to place for a lot of stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Because someone's reviewed it, someone's played it, someone will usually a lot of companies will have like that instructions.
Or even unofficial like channels that just are about board games, like the blog that Cody was talking about earlier. There's a lot of, channels on YouTube about, telling you about good games or just people watching people play different games. So you can see it, so you can not only see it set up, but you can see it in action. And then kind of go, oh, that's what that part of the rule book meant.
Before we go, favorite game.
Ooh. So I recently played a game called Terra Mystica.
Yeah. Or recent favorite game.
Yeah. Recent favorite game would be Terra Mystica, because you look at it and it looks like it should be super confusing, and then you learn one rule and then it's like, oh, if that is that, then that means this, and you can you basically understand the whole game at a glance, and everything is interconnected, and it's so damn pretty.
Well, we'll have to play it sometime. The only games I can think of currently are either Betrayal, House on the Haunted Hill,
solid one,
or House on the Hill, or Cards Against Humanity. Maybe that's just because we talked about them so much, but I do really love. Yeah,
I actually really like those games too.
Yeah,
yeah, I actually really enjoyed Pandemic.
Yeah, that was great.
Wasn't expecting to like it, but I love the cooperative.
I
aspect
agree.
of it.
We should play it again.
Yes,
right now.
Okay.
I'm just like, let's all.
The rest of this podcast this is now a pandemic podcast.
You make it sound like this game has infected us here at the podcast studio.
Yes.
I was gonna say I also really like Mysterium and Turo, but
Mysterium, yes.
But I think I like them more for their aesthetic than for necessarily the rules,
right? Like the actual gameplay.
Yeah, the actual gameplay. But I would say Turo has the same sort of elements in terms of pattern building that I enjoy in Chinese checkers. So I'm not entirely surprised that I like that game.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. How about chess? Chess. Does that count? That counts.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I do not know how to play chess very well, but yeah.
Yeah, the rise of chess leagues. I mean, we have one at the university.
Does anybody know how to play chess here?
I can play chess, yeah.
Pretty decent.
It's been
Laura
a long
versus
time.
Alvin chess game next podcast.
I can never figure out how the knight moved, though. I mean, like I know
the L shape.
I know it's in an L shape, but there's two different ways you can do it.
So
and
what you're saying is we should put money down on our next chess match.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll win.
Thanks again for joining us for a cool discuss on Talkily. Joining me today for the Resurgence of Board Games was Laura, Cody, and Mel. Intro-outro music is Illuminate by Ethan Rank, found on Artlist. All additional music acquired through Artlist. All images and videos in our show were acquired through Pixabay. Podcasting services acquired through Spreaker. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. If you enjoyed the show, please visit CoolDiscuss.com, check out our merch store, or consider making a donation so we can continue producing content. Please keep in mind we are just normal everyday people talking about things we think we know something about. We are not experts on anything. Always take everything you read or hear with a grain of salt. Never get all your information from only one place, and always be willing to question. This is AWC thanking you once again for joining us for another Cool Discuss.